and I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
All right, Hughes County, Oregon, and beyond. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to have another show, and we're going to play another game of Where's 3H Tree Service. So we're going to start that right off, and joining me right now is Matt Holman. How you doing, Matt?
We're doing good, Rob. The weather's holding off a little bit. It's not pouring down rain, just a little mist. We're doing good.
Well, I've already put up the official sign that we started to play, and I'm going to read some quick rules to it because I added one rule because it was something that we had a problem with on the radio show. The same person would always call in and win every week, so we had to put in a new rule that if you won in the last 30 days, you were ineligible to win until 30 days after the last time you won. And so, of course, the round has started. The first person to find Matt Holman. Matt Holman is somewhere in Coos County. We're going to go back to him and let him give us maybe an idea where he might be in Coos County. You find him, you'll win the grand prize. This week's grand prize is $50. The playing area covers all of Coos County. There will only be one winner per round. The round ends when we have a winner, and when announced on the Rob Taylor Report podcast. People who are ineligible to win the prize include family and employees of 3H Tree Service, anyone involved with hiring or contracting with 3H Tree Service, anyone who is a known criminal in Coos County or Oregon, and anyone who has won a round of Where's 3H Tree Service in the last 30 days. And, of course, the game has started. Matt, you got anything you want to throw in there?
No, I just appreciate you guys. Appreciate you supporting Rob and supporting us. I think if you looked around the North Bend Community Center, you might be able to find us.
Cool. That should be pretty easy. All right. Well, if anything interesting happens, click back on, and we'll get you back on. If you find a winner and you're around your truck and can click back on if you can.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
All right. We've got a great show for you, and we have a really special guest. I for the first time talking to this lovely lady, I got the chance to actually meet her in person. I was at the Western Liberty Network conference that was happening this past weekend up in Portland, and she showed up with many of the finest activists that are here in Oregon. And she's doing something that's, well, let me tell you, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing what she's doing. She's pushing for school choice. She's got 2 different petitions that are circulating right now. And joining me is Donna Kreitzberg from Education Freedom for Oregon. Donna, how you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm wonderful. I mean, I went after the conference on Saturday night. I went to go see my grandchild and my son and daughter-in-law. And I was there probably until about 10, so I didn't get home until about 3, almost 4 in the morning. So it was one of those nights.
Well, it's always good to
it was worth it. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's great to be a dad, but it's absolutely phenomenal being a granddad. Being a grandfather is much better.
I've heard the expression that says, hey, if I'd known being a grandparent was so fun, I'd have done it first.
I didn't know you could do that. Wow. Where are you calling us from?
Tualatin. I'm in Tualatin right now.
Oh, okay. That's not even that far from Portland, is it?
No, it was about a 35-minute drive to that conference. And that was wonderful to hear Grover Norquist talk about the states that save money or the states that use education savings accounts and private school choice programs and empower students to find the education environment that works for them. So that was phenomenal to hear him from a national perspective talking about the success across the country of school choice.
Yeah, he did a great speech. He had graphs that he was showing us and stuff about taxes and, like you said, school choice. And I've always been in favor of school choice. One of the first issues that I worked on way back years and years ago when I was in my late 20s was homeschooling. Homeschooling was a big thing. It wasn't even legal to do homeschooling in New Mexico, where I was from, and we fought for that and finally got it passed in the legislature. And it took off. It really took off because, you think Oregon's bad, New Mexico, I mean, it's not at the top of the list with its education system. And so we've got an education system now in the public schools where they're not even expecting you to read, write, or show arithmetic with any proficiency. I mean, I haven't seen you since they started that policy. What did you think when that came out?
Well, I was disappointed because all children can learn. Now, they learn differently because they're unique, but if given the opportunity, all the children can learn. And so to make a categorical change to say that, some subset of them cannot learn and therefore we're going to remove the graduation requirements for everybody, I think that's demeaning. And I think it's a disservice to our kids. I think all the kids need to be challenged and given the opportunity to show their strengths and help with their weaknesses and learn. And that's what school choice is. It's just saying, hey, kids are unique. They learn differently. Parents love their children and they know the strengths and limitations. And so putting those two together, it's very, common sense to let the parent be the one to choose which environment works best for their child. Because the whole point here is to make sure our kids get a great education. So let's not lock them in a certain setting and expect them all to flourish. Let's break open that setting and let them go to the environment that works for them.
It's funny that you say that because I was just talking to someone recently about how in America we start everyone off at 5 years old. You go to kindergarten, then you progress to first, second, third grade if you're able to pass the last grade. But in some countries, and I think it was Japan, I'm pretty sure it was Japan, where they don't teach the kids, they don't put them in at fifth grade at kindergarten. They put them in at the level that they're learning. So you might have a 5-year-old who's with 8-year-olds or an 8-year-old that's with 12-year-olds. I think that is a great idea because people who are much more advanced than a student that's much more advanced than another student might find it more gratifying to be with older kids where they can learn better. Have you ever heard of that process, how they've done that in some places?
Yes, I have. And I think some schools have tried to do it. There's an expression, and I can't think of what the term is, but a lot of times I think in some settings, for example, a government school, they're so used to a set pattern of there's a first grade classroom and a second grade classroom, and let's put them all in there and expect them all to learn. But they are individuals and they need to have individual education. And so there are situations. I remember 100 years ago when I was in school, I just happened to be good at math. And so even though I was in fourth grade, I was put physically in the sixth grade classroom at the time of the math. I guess we all had math at the same hour. So I just walked down the hall to a different class, go to math, and then go back. So it is possible. But I think when you have a huge structure like a government system, they aren't able to pivot and adapt. So that's another reason that a lot of kids need to go to a different environment, not because there's anything fundamentally wrong with public schools, but just that it doesn't suit the individual needs of students. So they could go to a smaller environment where they could spend, seventh grade English class, but ninth grade math class. And the smaller environments are able to adapt for that. And the whole thing should be about where the student is best served. So we should allow the kids to flow freely to the school setting that works for them.
Oh yeah, completely. I completely agree with that. And I imagine if you look back to when, Little House on the Prairie and you had the little red schoolhouse and the teacher there, that was pretty much the basic format for what they were doing. They would have the older kids help out the younger kids, but they were all in the same school being taught by the same teacher. And I'm sure there were kids who weren't advancing as fast enough. But I imagine there were a lot of kids who advanced even faster because they were put in with the older kids.
Well, actually, my husband was one of those kids who went to a single classroom setting in South Dakota.
No.
He did.
Really?
So there were, 20 or 25 kids, one teacher. His sister was the only one in her grade. She was a couple of years behind him. But it was great because they had the socialization because all the kids were there and the teacher could individualize certain things. But then some of the older kids could teach some of the younger kids. And sometimes you think you understand a subject, but you really don't understand it till you're actually able to teach it to someone. So those older kids who were then teaching the younger kids were learning more about whatever the subject was because they then had to internalize it, turn around and be able to teach it. So it worked really well. And of course, they were a bunch of ranchers and farmers and spread out geographically. So they didn't have the ability to have a congested public school. So they had the little one-room schoolhouse. So it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. It's cool that he had that experience and because your husband really isn't that old. I mean, I met him at the conference, and I'm thinking, when you said that, I just thought, wow, that's absolutely incredible. But that was in time and a place when we didn't even have a federal Department of Education, and probably most states didn't even have a Department of Education. Because we didn't get the federal Department of Education until I believe it was 1979. I don't quote me on that, but I believe it was in the late 70s when we finally got a federal Department of Education. And it seems like since then we have gone down. We've gone backwards in the elevation of our education of our children.
Well, remember the McGuffey readers that were taught on the prairies and so forth. And the joke used to be, kids only went to school through the 8th grade. But if you look at what they were learning in the 8th grade, it would rock your world because it's probably equivalent or higher than what they're learning in high school. So we have to remember, too, that basically everybody started out learning in their homes because we were farmers and ranchers and so forth. Some of the wealthier kids were able to go to a setting and then have a tutor teach them, and those became the Princetons of the world and whatnot. But then as we had more mobility and more population, then they couldn't teach at home. And so they'd say, hey, let's have a one-room schoolhouse. And then when there were more people and more mobility, it said, hey, the one-room schoolhouse is getting pretty crowded. Let's everybody throw some money in the hat and build a building, and then all the kids can go to there. So it just sort of became public buildings with public education because there were more people. But it wasn't meant to take away the focus of academic rigor and a skill set that the kids needed to learn. And then somewhere along the track we sort of veered off and became more of kind of an indoctrination, if you will, into a set subject matter that isn't really what the kids needed to learn. And we're now at the point where some of the kids are prospering in the public system and some of them are not. And so we need to open it up and bring it back so that the child can find the environment that works for them.
So really what you're saying, and it is called school choice, you have two measures and they're constitutional amendments, by the way, anyone who's interested, but these two measures that you're trying to put on the ballot through the initiative process that's going out and gathering signatures. One of them is called the school choice amendment. And I don't know how anyone would be opposed to choice. Choice is something that is freedom. When you go into the store, do you want 31 flavors of ice cream, or do you want one flavor of ice cream? And I think most people would go, I want 31. One day I might be Tutti Frutti, one day I might be Rocky Road. And so have you found that there are a lot of people out there who are opposed to this movement of school choice, having the ability to choose from different venues to put your school or put your children into school?
Well, most people, when we approach them and ask them about school choice, if they understand what it is, they're very eager to sign because they believe, even if they love their public school and want their children in the public school, they understand that for some kids, that's not the right place. And so they want to help all the kids. So they're eager to sign. Some folks aren't fully aware of what the two measures will do. And so they'll ask us some questions and then they'll say, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. If they want to be in the public school, they can choose any public school. That's the open enrollment. If public school isn't working for them and they want to be in the private sector, then they can use the school choice amendment and use some of the funds and customize the education in private school or homeschool. And so it's all about making sure that parents have the ability to choose among the four main environments: public, district, public charter, private school, homeschool. And so once they understand that that's what we're trying to do here, and it's not an us versus them, it's not a privatization of education, it's not private versus public, it's focusing on the child and what the child needs, then there's hardly any resistance because parents love their kids and they know how important education is. And all we're trying to do here is make sure the focus is on those kids and where those kids can learn best.
And how did you get to this? Were you always a political activist, or is this the first issue that you ever decided to go with?
Well, I don't consider this political, but basically I've always been, sort of a common sense person. And we used to talk about it at the dinner table and say, it should be that a child is worth X dollars, maybe 10,000. Wherever that child goes, the 10,000 should go, because we've all decided that it's a public good, that we all put money in a hat, and that money is then used for Oregon's kids to be educated. And so if that's the point, and if that's what we're all doing, which is what the Oregon Constitution says, then let's make sure that the money goes to those kids. And so it was just sort of common sense. And I ran for the school board. I was sort of pushed into running for the school board. That wasn't a success. And so I thought, oh, ouch, I don't like losing, but what can I do now? And all of a sudden the idea of school choice came to me. And I didn't really know what it was. So I researched it, met with a lot of people across the country that had been advocating for school choice. I read statutes, trying to figure out what it was all about, what was good, what was bad, and how to make it focused on our kids. And we knew that in Oregon, whereas all the states across the country have had statutory school choice programs because their legislatures created them, Oregon, we can't do that because they won't let a legislative process happen to allow school choice. So we knew as parents, we said, okay, we're going to do this ourselves. We'll do a citizen initiative, and we're going to do it by writing it for the parents and having the parents and citizens vote on it. And then it goes into the Constitution, which is the supreme law of Oregon. So it provides some permanency and protection for teachers, parents, private schools, and everyone. And so basically I just decided that this is something that Oregon's kids need. So what can we do about it? Got a bunch of people together, and now we have basically a volunteer group of almost 2,000 people that are helping, because we all feel that it's so important that our kids get the opportunity to figure out which environment works for them, go there, have the money follow them as it should, and then be able to get a good education.
What you just described was self-empowerment. What you have done is, not just you, but the organization you have built is self-empowerment, and it almost puts you at a higher level than if you did win the school board. Because if you won the school board, you would have been tied in with 6 other people who you would have to convince them to agree with you. It's very political, whereas going through this initiative process, you've really empowered yourself. Do you feel empowered doing this? Does it feel like something that, it's, because I think it's a wonderful thing. I think you're doing a great job. How do you feel about this?
Well, I just know I used to be an attorney, and that was kind of gruesome, and you're always being called on, and it's a lot of pressure. And so I retired, and then I've been doing this, and I got to tell you, I wake up excited in the morning and think, okay, what are we going to accomplish today? And how many more volunteers? And I go to the post office, and there's signatures there that I get to open, and it's like Christmas. And we keep moving one step closer and closer to getting enough signatures to put these on the ballot to then be able to have Oregonians vote on it. And it's so exciting because I don't have kids in the system. I don't know who these kids are that we're helping, but I just know that we're helping these kids. And it's going to then help those kids, and it'll help Oregon. And I plan to stay here. I think Oregon's beautiful. So this is the hill that I'm going to die on. We're going to bring this to Oregon. We're going to help these kids, because these kids will then become our future. And I want to make sure that they all have a happy future, that they have a skill set they can go be a business entrepreneur, or go work for somebody, or go to college, or be a stay-home parent. Whatever it is that they need to do, we owe it to them to make sure they get a good education. And we need to make sure they're challenged and they're also rewarded in the areas that they like. Because, maybe some kids are great in art and they just don't understand math, or maybe they like math and they can't blow a horn to save their life. So whatever they need to be able to have the opportunity to get into that environment. Because some kids right now, they could be in a setting where they are challenged too much and they get frustrated, so they act up, or they're bored out of their mind and so they're falling asleep, or they're acting up. And these kids can't get a do-over. It's not like we can say, let's just take 7th grade over again. No, these kids need it now. And so if you allow them to flow to the right environment, those kids that might have been a knucklehead before, now they're going to be excited. They're going to like the classes. They're going to be challenged, or they're going to get the extra help they need. And they can then become very successful and happy, and then go on to be great things. They could be an Elon Musk, or a Bill Gates, or a Sally the dishwasher. I mean, whatever it is, they can find fulfillment. And that's the whole point.
And that's what opportunity brings to everyone if they have that choice. And all those names you just mentioned, all those successful people, I think we're losing a lot of successful people because we're putting really incredible, capable young minds into the grind of everyday public education that doesn't allow you to flourish because it's just so binding by its very bureaucratic, systematic approach to educating children. And like you said, it's more of an indoctrination. It's funny you mentioned going to the mailbox and getting signatures and getting excited. When I ran a measure, that was always my favorite thing. And I'd fan the papers looking through all those names going, oh, look at there. It was like, I mean, I'm sure people think, oh, well, you're just, that's really weird. You're getting excited about signatures. But to us, that's gold. You know what I mean? And I'm sure I've gotten at least 40 or 50,000 signatures in my lifetime of going out and doing measures and on initiatives, recalls, or referendums. And so I'm so glad that you stepped up to this, because this is not easy work. A statewide initiative is an incredible amount of work. Did you expect this amount of work when you got into it, or what did you expect?
Well, I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that I had to do it. And so it was like peeling an onion, and I realized, oh, this is the next thing I have to do. And oh, this is the next thing. And I have a skill set, and I'm, a numbers person and an analysis and so forth. But I don't have a lot of skills in another bunch of areas. And so the volunteers that are around me, they've had, great salesman skills, or data analyst, or all these different functions that make my head explode that I can't do. And so together, it's not just me, it's me and all of these people, and they all have skills, and they're all rising to the top, and they're all taking on a role. And it's great because, after my accident, when I shattered my leg on the motorcycle, I was basically sidelined for a while. And all these wonderful people stepped up and said, well, I'll handle this, and I'll do this, and I'll do this. So now we have everybody tapped into, whether it's helping make phone calls, or write letters, or gather signatures, or verify signatures, or do the outreach to their local private school, or their local public school, or district school, or go to their church, or whatever environment, the Elks Club. Everybody's stepping up and taking a role and being active, because they all know that this is so important. And it's not one of those where, oh, yeah, we like the idea, you go do it. No, this is going to take work, and it does take work, because we have to get about 161,000 signatures for each measure, but we want to get about 200,000 because we want a cushion. And when you get a few hundred signatures in the mail every day, it's a long slog to get to the 200,000. And we're doing well, but we need a tremendous amount more. So we need more volunteers. We need everybody to go to the website, educationfreedomfororegon.com. You can print out the 10-liners. You can walk up and down your street, and within like a half an hour, probably get 2 or 3 or 4 pages. You could also just print out the single signers where you yourself sign, and then you could attach those to a text or an email and send to all your Oregon contacts. So it doesn't take a lot of time. It isn't expensive, but it's sure going to be important for these kids, and they don't have the time to waste. We need to get to them now to help them be able to have the opportunity to get a good education.
And if you're tuning into this podcast, or for those of you who are going to watch this later, there, right there on the screen, or educationfreedomfororegon.com is the website where you can get the petitions that Donna just spoke of. And for any of you who are online right now, if you want to ask Donna questions, you're more than welcome to put a question in there. And if I see it in the comment section, I will definitely get that to her. But right now, I want to ask you: you have two measures. And both of these are constitutional amendments. That's very important because it's much harder for the legislature to change constitutional measures than if you were just trying to change state laws. So this is very important that people understand that. But you have the school choice amendment, which is for private school and homeschool students. And then you have the open enrollment amendment for public school and charter school students. Why don't you explain the first amendment, school choice amendment, and what it does?
Okay. Well, basically, I like to think of it as there's four main areas that a child can get their education. The private school, homeschool, public district, or charter school. And when we first drafted these, we had them all combined in one measure, and then that was thrown out, so we separated them. So it's not like only public school students can use one and only private can use the other. It's where the parent decides is the best environment for the child. If the family decides that the child is best served in a private school or a homeschool, they would then use the school choice amendment. And all that requires is that they let the state know, hey, I'm out of the public system. I've chosen a nonprofit to handle the account. Please send my portion of the education dollars to this account. Then the parent doesn't touch the money, but the parent can direct how the money is spent and is able to customize and craft the education that their child needs, whether that's a tutor, education therapist, private school tuition, homeschool curricula, national testing, whatever they need to help that child. And then whatever they don't spend in a given year rolls over to the next year. And then whatever by the time they complete high school they haven't spent, that money is then available for that child to use in Oregon because it came from Oregon taxpayers and it's meant for Oregon students. So that child can then go to college or trade school in Oregon using that money. So with the school choice amendment, we're squeezing every ounce of value out of the money that the child has available to them. And we also protect and build basically an electrified brick wall between what the government can regulate, which is public schools and to a lesser extent charter schools, and what it can't, which is private schools and homeschools. And we do that because the point here is to make sure a parent can choose among various discrete and disparate learning environments. We don't want them all to mush together and become just one pot again, because the whole point of choice is to allow parents to choose among them. So having this wall between them allows the private schools to remain distinct, the homeschool environment to remain distinct, and then if they want to be in the public school system, they can use the open enrollment amendment, which just says, hey, you might be assigned to this particular district school, but that might not suit you, so you could choose a different district school or a charter school. And if where you want to go has room, the school has to take you. So again, parents can choose, and if they have 4 kids, they might have 1 kid in each environment. Or maybe a child starts in a public district school and then finds that they need a smaller classroom, so they go to a private, or maybe they start in a homeschool and then they want to have another more different challenge and they go to a charter school. So they can choose and then flow around, and it's not a one-time shot. The whole point here is to make sure those kids can learn where they're getting their needs met.
One of the problems that my sister had when she was homeschooling her kids, and all of her kids, all 4 of them, I believe there were 4. Yeah, there were 4. And so she always had a problem of having the funding to do a lot of the things that they were able to do in public school. Now, the way you just explained this, does that mean that people are actually going to be able to have money to do more for their kids' curriculum if they're homeschooling?
Yes, because the point here, according to the Oregon Constitution, we all pay taxes and a portion of those are allocated to education. And that education money is spent on Oregon kids, full stop. It isn't Oregon kids to go to this building or Oregon kids that go to that building. It's Oregon kids. So what we're doing is saying, let's have the money follow these children. The parents know the kids, they choose the environment, the money flows to that environment. And right now it's about $17,000 that's spent on a child in a public school. And if a child says, that's not the right environment for me, I'm going over here to the private side, only 7,600 follows them out. And so they then are able to use the 7,600 and get a customized education. And then that will help them, because right now the parents pay taxes, and then they'd have to also write a tuition check, which is a penalty or a surcharge against parents whose children go to private school or homeschool. And that causes a two-class system, and we don't want that. And that's not what the Oregon Constitution requires. So we're allowing parents to have some of their control back over a portion of the dollars that they would have had spent on their child in the public school. And since they're only taking the 7,600 and all the costs associated with that child walk out the door, there's still about $8,400 that's left in the public school, which is then allocated over the number of kids that stay in the public school. So each of those children get effectively more money spent on them when they're in the public school. So it allows kids to customize in the environment that they want. It allows for more funding of the kids that stay in the public school. But the whole key here is it allows kids to find the environment where they can thrive and learn better and meet their needs. So the whole thing is, it's not a private versus public. It's a where can the kids get the best education? And it helps the kids choose the environment. And it also helps the teachers, because there are teachers now that are perhaps not happy with where they're teaching, and they want the ability to choose where they want to teach. So with school choice and all these different environments where the kids are going, the teachers will also have more choice to teach in a different environment that suits what they want. So it helps the students, it helps the finances, it helps the teachers, and it helps Oregon. So it's a win-win.
As you were speaking before you got to talking about teachers and them having more choices, because there will be more charter schools or private schools, because the money is going to flow more directly to those places because it's going to follow the kids. I think a lot of teachers, if you talk to them one-on-one, they will love that idea, because they hate getting stuck in the same restricted public school system. And I have a cousin who she was a private school teacher in Texas, a public school teacher in Texas, and she moved to a private school and took a little bit of a pay cut, but it was a much better atmosphere, and she was able to get her son into that private school as well. And so far they love it so much better, because like you said, it's the choice that they made because they wanted it. It's a Christian private school, and so she felt more welcome in there. So the teachers, I could see loving it, but the teachers union, I could see maybe not being too happy with this idea of losing any of the money for the public schools. How would you address that?
Well, again, the public schools don't actually lose the money, because when the child walks out the door with only $7,600, the costs associated with that child leave too. So they're actually making money because the child leaves, the costs associated leave, and half of the kid's money stays there. So there's no other industry where you could be leaving a business and leave half of your money behind. If one month you shop at Safeway and the next month you choose to shop at Trader Joe's, but Safeway says, hey, I want half your budget. What? No, of course not. So the money should follow the child. And in this way, only a portion actually goes out the door with the child, leaving an abundance still in the public school. And so the kids that remain in the public school get a little bump, because now there's more money spread among fewer students. So it helps the public school, it helps the private school, and the child that is able to then choose that environment. And like we said, it helps the teachers. And a lot of times there aren't a huge number of kids leaving a public school, because the studies show that having the ability to leave is enough to get the public schools to organically say, oh, wow, okay, we have the chance that we're going to lose some students. Maybe we should examine what we're delivering as a product, and maybe we should listen to our parents at the school board meetings, and they can choose to be more responsive, or they can choose not to. But then the parents, if the school doesn't respond and listen to the parents can say, okay, I am out of here. I'm going to the district school down the road, or I'm going to a private school and taking my child. But the whole idea here is to make sure that the kids can learn where they can get best served. And if the schools want to compete for the students, they can. If they don't, there's plenty of students who will remain in the public schools. But for those kids where the public school isn't working, they need an escape route. They need the ability to move. Otherwise, these kids are being ripped off. They're not being able to get the education that they deserve. And so they're going to then be frustrated if they graduate without a skill set, and that's going to cost Oregon. Might lead to crime, might lead to homelessness, but it's definitely going to lead to disappointment for that child. And as parents, we need to help all these kids. It's not just some of the kids, it's all the kids that need the opportunity.
And you know, in the way you explain that, talking about how the school won't lose any money, kind of shows that's the flaw with the system, is the lack of competition doesn't make them become a better school. And the fact is that they're a monopoly, that because they're a monopoly, there's no incentive for them to do any better. This just sounds like a better way of literally forcing the public schools to provide a better product. I think it's genius.
Well, and it's something that's been successful all around the country. And the studies show that when we do have robust private school choice around a public school, the school itself improves. And of course, the kids who are able to go to a smaller environment that works better for them, they're getting a better education. But what's nice is it's the tide that lifts both boats, because the kids that remain at the public school end up with better test scores and academic progress, as do the kids who have switched to a charter school or private school. So they all benefit, and they're all able to find the environment that works, because you could have a genius buried in a public school who's frustrated, and when the child is able to go somewhere else, they can then prosper. And isn't that the point here? We want to make sure that we find all those kids and give them the chance to really learn to their fullest ability. So if we trap them all in an environment and say, well, we have to make all the money go to support this particular building, what have we done to the kids as a result? Let's just change that focus 180 degrees and say, what's best for the kids? Let's make the money follow the kid and make sure the kid is getting a good education, instead of the money going to a building and hoping and praying that the kid will succeed. Because that's not the focus it should be. It should be on making sure the kid finds the environment.
Right. They are the consumer. They should be able to have that choice. The one thing that I did hear from a friend of mine who does homeschool is she was worried that the school choice amendment would give the ability for the state of Oregon to come in and force a curriculum on homeschool students. And I think you explained how this is worked out in the way the school choice amendment is written, and how that gives the homeschoolers a little bit more protection.
Yes, what we were doing here is we were being very mindful of protecting parents, homeschoolers, and private schools, because again, we want to make sure that the four environments stay intact: district, charter, private, homeschool. So in drafting the school choice amendment, we've specifically stated that when the money goes from the state to the account at the nonprofit that the parent chooses, that money stops being government money. That legally severs the tie between the government and the money, and so thereafter the government cannot regulate the parent or the private school that's using that money. So that's the first protection. Basically, the money is not going to be bringing with it a string for the government. And then we specifically wrote into the amendment protections that keep the government from being able to tell a parent what to do as far as curriculum. The government can't say you can only use this or you may not use that one. We also protect so that the parent and private school can choose the education practices. If the parent thinks that this curriculum and working from 9 in the morning till noon and then taking a 2-hour break to go to the zoo or the museum or something works, that's within the purview of the parent or the private school, because they are directly involved in the teaching of these children and they have the best interest of the kids at heart. So we put in these protections in the amendment. The amendment language goes right into the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law, and it trumps any laws that the legislature makes. So it's as if we are putting a constitutional suit of armor around the private schoolers and the homeschoolers, and they are separate from the current homeschoolers, who are now just a statutory exception from compulsory education at a public school. So it's two different groups. If a parent chooses to participate in the school choice amendment, they will be a constitutional homeschooler. They will then be protected from government interference because of the constitutional suit of armor around them. And unlike the programs across the country that are legislative, when the legislature creates the program, the legislature controls it. So all across the country, there is a risk that the legislature could change and all of a sudden revise the statutes or repeal them or something like that. That won't be the case here, because as constitutional amendments, we bypass the legislature and we bypass the governor, and we take the words that we wrote for parents and private schools and teachers, and it goes right in the Constitution. So it gives permanency and protection so that everybody can rely on the fact that, hey, parents can choose the environment, kids can go to that environment and learn. And then hopefully they all graduate with a skill set and they all go on to live prosperous lives.
That's great. This is all fabulous. I hope there's a lot of people out there who are going to watch this, who go to your website and definitely download the petitions to go get signatures. And you did a smart thing here. If you're going to go out and get signatures on one petition, it's so much easier to get a signature on 2 good petitions than it is to take them out on a separate time at a separate place. You're doing them 2 at the same time. And the second one is open enrollment amendment for public school and charter schools. And explain and this once again, folks, is a constitutional amendment for Oregon, open enrollment amendment. What would that do?
So that one is if little Johnny is assigned to school district A, but for whatever reason that's not the right environment, and school district B has room in the 7th grade, little Johnny can go to that other school and will be accepted. And if a charter school is a better environment and there's room at that charter school, then little Johnny can go there. So what we're doing there is we're saying within the public side of things, you might be assigned to this location, but if there's a different location that works better, a different learning environment, and that one that you want to go to has room, then you get to go there. And all the public system has to comply and be a part of this. It's not they get to choose or not. We took what had been open enrollment from 2012 to 2019, and we basically revised it and improved it so that it's parent-centric and focuses on the needs of the children. All the schools have to participate. If they have room and a parent wants to go, then the school has to take the child. But we also are mindful that we're not going to burden the public system. We're not going to tell the system, hey, district school A, you have to add a 2nd floor, or you have to add a modular building, or you have to drive your yellow school bus 20 blocks away and pick up little Johnny. No. It's just if there's room at the place the parent wants the child to go, then the child gets to go there. And so we're basically freeing up the kids who want to stay in the public system to go anywhere. And we're also removing the artificial 3% cap on virtual schools, because there's no point in having a cap. If 10% of the kids need to go to a virtual school, then gosh darn it, 10% should. So we just blow away that 3% cap and say, hey, parents, if you're assigned here, but you think there's a better environment over there and there's room, knock yourself out. Have your child go there. The more the merrier. And if there are 10 spaces and there's 20 kids that want to go there, then all the names go in a hat and they're randomly chosen. No preferences, just basically whoever gets pulled out of a hat gets there first. Everybody gets an equal shot. And there's plenty of room, all different schools, for kids to flow. And so the whole point here is to make sure that all the public schools get to be able to have full employment, and the teachers that work there can have more job security. And the kids, again, the focus is they get to find the environment within the public system that works best for them.
I didn't realize, I learned something new here. I didn't realize they had a 3% cap on virtual schools. Is that for each district only 3%, or will our?
Well, it's on virtual. There's a virtual charter school, and there's a cap put on there, and it's artificial because basically it says that if there's a virtual charter school outside of the district school itself, that the district school can prohibit a child from going there. And you're like, why? Why would that be? There's a backstory to it.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, we don't need that, and it stops children from being able to freely flow to the environment that works for them. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for kids to find the environment that allows them to learn the best and fulfill their learning needs.
I also think that this amendment would also give that incentive to districts who are failing the students a reason and an incentive to do better, because the parents would normally pick the better districts if they live, say they live on the wrong side of the railroad tracks and the school that they're going to is just not not as good as the school across town, I imagine that this would cause the schools themselves to want to fix up the schools that are failing.
Well, it allows them to do that because it allows each public school to create its own identity and to organically change. And maybe one of them wants to go STEM, or one of them wants to go music or something as their focus. And it allows that flexibility because parents will recognize, oh, there's a school that really focuses on calculus and little Johnny needs that. Or there's a school that focuses on band or music of some sort, and the little Sally wants that environment. So it allows the public schools to create their own sort of persona and their culture, and then parents can go, oh, that's great, I want to have my child go there. And so right now, they're this monolithic, they have to be a certain way. We're not telling them to change, but with open enrollment, it allows them to change because they can customize how they want to focus. And then the teachers can move freely too. So it helps, and by having be a free flow of students and teachers, then parents can find the environment that works best. And again, that's the whole point here is, where's little Johnny going to do the best and get the best education? Let's make sure little Johnny can get there, whether it's public, charter, private, homeschool.
I've been trying to find something to be critical on, and I'll tell you, you're deflating all my criticism. There is nothing here that I can argue with. In fact, I support everything you're saying. I've got a sponsor. He's getting ready. I usually have him on the last 10 minutes of this hour, but I want to bring him on right now and see what he thinks about this, because I think this is something that he would be interested in, even though he doesn't have kids. He's an employer. He hires a lot of people, so I'd like to hear what he has to say. I'm going to bring him on here. Hey, Tim, how you doing?
Hey, doing good. I just got on, so I didn't hear a whole bunch what's going on, but I see your sign behind, so I'm sure it's about the public pool system.
Well, this is Donna Kreitzberg. Donna, this is Tim Stillen from Tom and Gigs. And she's got this really cool, she's got two really good constitutional amendments. One is for school choice, where the money would follow the kid, so that if they wanted to homeschool, charter school, or do a private school, then the parents could be able to afford to send them to these different entities over the public school. What do you think of that one?
Well, let me just jump in there too.
Okay.
The charter schools are public. So the school choice amendment allows you to take a portion of your money to the private sector, which is private schools and homeschools.
Right.
So what do you think,
Well,
Tim?
I mean, how much is your kid's life worth? How can you put a price on it? People say, I can't afford those schools. I don't see how you can afford not to. Because if we just keep doing what we're doing, obviously it's downhill slide to Alice in Wonderland for these people in their minds. They don't have a clue about reality. There's no education. It's not like when we were in school. We learned a lot of vocational stuff. We learned automotive trade, metal trade, welding, all those sort of things that, yeah, maybe some kids are doing it, but the majority of them are just on their iPhones all day. But they're really not learning about history or economics. I don't think the public pool system wants them to know, because they want to keep them dumbed down. So her idea to get this to be able to be affordable for other kids that maybe they couldn't afford to, have a way out of that, and that'd be great. No, can't complain there if you're trying to help out, the people that really need help.
Yeah, I totally agree with it. Like I was telling Donna, I haven't found anything to critique or criticize on anything that she's presented. So here's the second one, and you're going to like this. It's open enrollment. It's an open enrollment amendment so that people could decide if they don't like their district, they could send their kid to another charter or private school as long as there's room at those schools. Do you think that is something that we should be supporting?
Well, let me jump in there too also. Sorry, the open enrollment says you can choose any public district school or public charter school. So we have to keep the separation between what's public and what's private. Open enrollment says you choose any public district or public charter. School choice amendment says you can choose any private school, homeschool.
Yeah, well, that's the thing between public and private, I guess. So you've got to separate those two, right? You can't mix and match all that stuff, I guess, so to speak. I wish I had a little bit more knowledge on that side of things. But if I had a kid in school, he wouldn't be in public pool system, that's for sure. whether it be a charter school or a private school. Private probably even more, but charters, yeah, it's expensive, but I see some of the kids that come in here that go to those charter schools with their parents, and they're light years ahead of the kids that are in the public system. It's not even a close second. It's those kids are almost like college educated compared to the kids that come in here that are just basically kind of the woke thing and all this transgender stuff. That's not education. That's indoctrination, destroying people's lives, where I don't think you're going to see that sort of thing in the private system, are you? I mean, or in the charter system.
Well, let me get you on this. The charter and the public are charter schools and public schools are both public schools. Isn't that right, Donna? Both of them
Yes.
are public schools.
Okay.
It's just the charter, they seem to do better because it's what. Why do you think that is, Donna, that the charter schools do better?
Well, the charter school is based on a contract between the provider of the school and either the district, state of Oregon, or a college. So their expectancy and their performance is based on a contract. They have to deliver or the contract is breached. So a charter school is one step away from the ODE mandates and all the curriculum requirements. So a charter school can have its own personality right now, and they can then expect higher standards out of their students. They can have a more rigorous academic program. And so they can also then, demand higher performance from their students. And I think that's well suited to a lot of the kids who need to be challenged. They need to be given the environment where they can succeed. And they can also focus on a personality type within they can be a STEM school or they can be the music school because they're smaller and they're based on a contract as opposed to just the big monolithic government entity. So a charter school allows for more hands-on with the child and the student can then find the charter that works for their learning skill. So it's the beginning of school choice. It's called public school choice. And so it's been very successful across the country since the 90s. And we're just expanding that in Oregon. And we're also putting alongside of it private school choice, which says maybe public or charter doesn't work for the student. So they need the other two options, which is private school, homeschool. So now parents can choose among the four options to figure out which one of those is best suited for their child.
So does that explain it, Tim?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not a problem. I mean, that you've got a choice. You're not mandated to do one thing or another. It's just you're not just locked into, should I say, at a local high school here, whatever it is, whether it's Coos Bay or North Bend. You don't have to go there. You've got a choice, and that's what people need to do. Whether the money always seems to be the problem that I hear what people complain about as to how much it costs. Well, how much is your child worth? I'm glad I had an opportunity when school was, I would say, normal back in the 70s. We used to be able to bring our guns to school in our rack or our pickup. Now you can't do anything. You're so limited on, so many different things. It seems like the whole thing is teaching common sense, I guess. People need to have the choice to send their kid where they need to go and where they think is going to be best for them, whether we agree or not. At least it's their choice. At least not the government's not making your choice. I don't need the government.
Right. It's allowing the parent to make that choice instead of plunking a child in a classroom based on, kind of an archaic system, because that might have worked in the past and it might work for some students, but we know now that it doesn't work for all of them. So now parents with school choice are able to decide the environment, and then the child is able to succeed in that new environment.
Yeah, and I would say now anymore, almost seeing some of the kids that come here, I mean, not all of them have a high school diploma. To me anymore, they're almost more dumbed down when they have one. Sometimes, not all the time, but kids that can think for themselves are a little more apt to get things figured out. But the ones that don't and just go along to get along or just take everything as a grain of salt as the truth, you got to be able to, hire somebody that's smart and that wants to work. To me, it seems like the high school diploma isn't really worth the damn hardly. I mean, what the state doesn't even say you have to have one now, right? So it's either our state or national. The
benefit of the private school choice program is that with private schools, they're protected in who they're hiring as teachers. There's no way that the government can tell them what the teacher has to have, whether it's certificate or whatever. And so then private schools are able to hire, let's say, a retired Oregon State professor in physics. That person doesn't have a license that would allow them to work in a public K through 12, but they could be a wealth of knowledge, and a private school could hire that professor and teach, so the person isn't fully retired. Maybe they teach 1 day a week. And the benefit to students at that private school to be able to learn from a guy that's been in the trenches for 40 years teaching is going to be tremendous. And so that's another opportunity that private school choice will allow to come to fruition. And that is the ability to have, one, professors who don't want to fully retire, but still keep their feet in the door. And then the benefit to these kids to be able to learn from some of these folks that have done amazing things and have been in the trenches with their subject for so long. You can't have that in a public school. You can only have that over on the private side.
So Tim, if you got more private schools, you could go and teach kids how to work on cars. You can do a whole curriculum on auto mechanics, because you've been doing this for how long? And wow, they could be.
Yeah,
What'd you say?
It'd be great. I mean, try to hire a good tech around here. I mean, a lot of them got to go to a specialty school. Granted, for those stuff that's really sophisticated, the diagnostics you have to have now for doing things, it's just not turning wrenches anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's not easy turning wrenches, but it's more physical than mental a lot of times. So, but yeah, that'd be great to be able to share the knowledge, because a lot of these guys from the old timers, just like my dad in the old days doing body work, there's a lot of things that aren't being taught anymore, and it's going to go by the wayside when he's gone. And you got to go to a school where I learned a lot of that when I was in high school, and I started here in the mid '70s. I was doing work experience, right? You never hear that anymore. We got out of school an hour or two early, and we went down and we came here and learned to work here. And we had several people, a couple friends of mine, that actually came down and did work experience. And is it something they want to maybe do as a life career? You never know until they try. So that opens the door too. I think hands-on out of a classroom, and the kind of things we do especially, is very important, and gives them a whole lot more outlook on what the job actually entails. Everybody's, I want to be a mechanic. Well, yeah, that's cool. That's great, because we need more of those people. We do. And it's very difficult. Like, we need one right now, and you just can't find one that's, it's either one, they, don't have the discipline to show up on working time, or, whatever they're doing. And it's just very hard to get a work ethic. You either have it or you don't. I'm not a motivator. You motivate yourself. But we need more people that will get in that and help educate those kids and maybe get them excited about a different career.
Well, and another thing that you didn't hear was that the private school choice measure, when the child graduates or completes high school, if there's money left in their account, they can take that and go to a mechanic school. They can go to a trade school or a vocational school and then learn the trades, because we need, as Tim said, we need as many tradesmen as we do college graduates. So they can take that money, squeeze the value out of it, become a welder, mechanic, carpenter, whatever they need to be. And that's an opportunity for them to have the funds to do that with, because again, the whole point of these dollars that we pay in taxes is to give these kids the best education possible.
Yeah, money well spent there, as far as taxes go. So, kids are our future, we gotta help them and make good choices.
Yeah. So Tim, I thought that this would just be interesting to have you on and get a third perspective. But if you'd like to plug your business, we'd love to hear it.
Well, we try to educate people, and it's free when they bring their car in. So educational freedom here, education. I see behind her there. So no, it's good to educate people and help them understand. I mean, just like yourself, you came in, you didn't know about tonneau covers, for instance. Josh showed you 4 different ones. He's educating in a way. He's letting you know what is better, what's not, and help you make an intelligent choice. And so, same way with what she's talking about, same thing. Kids can make an intelligent choice what they're doing. But, we try to open people's eyes to the mechanic world of the cars and trucks and all these different things, that it's not as simple as it seems sometimes. A ball joint, it's a simple thing, but it takes a process to do it, and that's what I'm doing right now. It's not a 5-minute job, it's not all you got to do. So it takes knowledge, and we have all the guys to do it. Josh is great on stuff, and Austin's back there working on all kinds of stuff all the time, wiring, ball joints, and you name it. He's the best alignment guy in town as far as I'm concerned. That may be arguable, but to me, I wouldn't trade him for 2 or 3 of the other guys around. So I think it's pretty cool because there's a perfect example of a guy that pulled his way out of a bad situation and got into a trade and doing alignments. We sent him to school to Portland there. He wanted to do it. We offered him the opportunity. We were working with all brand new equipment. He went up there and got educated, and look what he's got. Now he's making good money. He wasn't doing hardly anything before. So it's pretty phenomenal to see a guy that can be disciplined. If you want to do it, you can make a good living and have a steady job. And when you want to do a quality job, it resonates with your employer. Not only that, with the customers too. So pretty cool to see stuff here. What we, just like myself, back in the day, I was just a sander and sweeper, and pretty soon you graduate up to other things. So it just, takes time to learn things, and you have to be willing to do it. So the education part, that's where she's talking about, is the first thing to do. And other than that, our business is doing great. We appreciate you being on here, or letting me be on, and appreciate what she's doing there. It sounds like a very good thing. And I didn't get to hear the whole interview, but I'll go back over your podcast here and see what else is going on. But pretty awesome. It's a good thing to see positive things. There's so many negative things out there, but hopefully we can get her done. But phone number out here at the shop, 541-888-4660. And the address is 135 South Shoneman here in Coos Bay. And, I always tell all these people out there, you go woke, you go broke. Get some common sense. We're just really sick and tired, I will tell you, about the homeless thing out here. Is a constant thing. So we'll just keep rubbing it into people out there to let them know how crappy it really is. And we have a lot of vandalism and theft, and it's just terrible. Kind of frustrating, but hopefully those people would want to, get some education. I don't know if that's possible or not, but anyway, we just keep plugging along. I appreciate being on this thing, and I probably got other things to say, but I got a lot on my mind right now. So anyway, I appreciate being on here. You guys are awesome, and keep up the good work, and I'll be more prepared next week.
You got it, Tim. You were great. Fabulous.
Talk
to you later.
Right on, brother. We'll see y'all later. You guys take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. And, one of the things that he touched on is that we do have a huge amount of people who are drug addicts, who are homeless, who just can't seem to function. And I blame a lot of it, it starts in the home, let's be honest, but a lot of it is the education system that we have. I think, like you said, there were a lot of people who were left behind. That was the promise of Obama, no child left behind. And now, was that Obama or was that Bush? I can't remember which one who did that, but it seems like we've left a lot of kids behind, and they're failing now as adults. And I think what you're doing with this school choice, with the open enrollment measures, I think it's wonderful. Before I get you out of here, is there anything you would like to tell my audience before we go?
Well, we would love more volunteers. You can go to the website, educationfreedomfororegon.com, and sign up, and then we'll bring you into the fold. We have training materials. We can show you how to be a signature gatherer, how to understand the measures, the common questions that you might get asked, the answers to those. And it's a lot of fun, too, because the folks that are doing this from their heart. We're volunteers. We're out there trying to share the message of how this can help Oregon kids, and then ultimately it'll help Oregon, too. So we need more volunteers because we have a huge mountain to climb to gather enough signatures to bring this. And our kids desperately need this because they need the education opportunities right now to be able to be successful in life. So we have the opportunity with these 2 measures to get them the opportunities and the options they need. It's hope on the horizon for them, but we need the volunteers to help us get the signatures. And then, of course, we need money because I have to write checks for printing and postage and gas to bring, signage across the state. So there's a money aspect to this, too. So if anybody can help us out, they can go to the website, educationfreedomfororegon.com, and we have a little donate button there. We use all of those funds to help with this cause. It's all about the kids. We're not political. We're moms, dads, grandparents doing this for the love of kids. And it's important that we do it now because they can't wait. We need to be able to offer these opportunities to them now so that they can then go on and complete their schooling and go out there and do whatever is meant for their lives. So we're excited about it. We have a lot of volunteers. We have a lot of enthusiasm. And it's a great bunch of folks. So volunteers, money, and spreading the word would be wonderful.
Well, thank you, Donna, and I will definitely post more of this on my social media and on the website to try to promote it, because I think this is the top issue, because there's so many issues that we're dealing with that this is the one that's going to affect our future and us directly right now, because our children are the most important thing. They are the most important thing, and if we don't get a hold of an education system that's failing, and globally we're failing, I think we're number 18 or 19 as far as industrial nations is ranking as in school education. And so I think this is a very important issue, if not the top and most important issue. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would agree with that. So thank you very much, Donna, and I'll be promoting the heck out of this, okay? And we'll get you back on
thank
before
you.
You got it. You take care, okay?
All right, you too. Thanks, Rob. Bye-bye.
No problem. Bye-bye. All right. And, it's great to have Donna on here to talk about this. It's good to have people who are experienced in these issues, who's taken the initiative. Donna has gone out there, and Donna has empowered herself with the measure process, the initiative process, and that's the best thing anyone can do. I'm getting ready to switch gears. We're going to talk to Todd Vaughn. Todd Vaughn is a candidate who's running for Senate District 1. Senate District 1. Right now, that seat is being held by David Brock Smith, and many of us would like to see that seat change. And there are 3 other candidates who are running in that race against David Brock Smith. It's Todd Vaughn, you've got Paul Romero, and you have Ashley Hicks. So this is going to be a pretty good hour, and if any of you have any questions, once again, feel free to do that. I know you can't ask any questions on Rumble. The only time I can get questions is through the YouTube app. They're the only ones where questions are allowed. So if you're trying to ask a question on Rumble and you can't, see if you can flip over to Facebook, and then you can ask some questions. But and we haven't had a winner yet for our game today. That's right. We're still playing 3H Tree Service. Where's 3H Tree Service? Today's round of Where's 3H Tree Service has started. If you want to find them, they are in North Bend, and you can, they're somewhere around the North Bend Community Center. If you want $50, you might want to get in your car and drive around North Bend Community Center and check it out. Just look for that 3H Tree Service truck, and they can probably help you out with all of that. I'm going to go straight over to my next guest, because he's probably ready to get on the air and talk about his campaign. And so joining me right now is Mr. Todd Vaughn. Mr. Todd Vaughn, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Rob. How are you doing tonight?
Not too bad. The reception okay? I've been having a little bit of trouble with my internet here.
Yeah, it kind of has been blinking. I watched your previous guest, really enjoyed your interview with Donna, but it's good right now.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. All right. So you're running for the Senate District 1. How did you get wrangled into jumping into politics? Is this your first adventure in politics? What is your experience, and why did you decide to run for Senate District 1?
Well, I actually ran against Brock Smith in the his appointment process. So I jumped into that because I was trying to help provide the candidates that were needed. We needed a number of candidates to make the process work, and we didn't have very much time to generate candidates because Senator Hurd actually quit in a period of time that was just really close to, like, within 2 or 3 weeks, the appointment had to take place. I'm not sure exactly what all the reasons for that was, But I ran. I decided to go ahead and run. I thought it'd be a good experience for me. And so, yeah, I went through that process and spoke over in Coquille. And there were some strange anomalies that took place throughout the whole process. A number of us came back to Douglas County and were going to speak before the commissioners. And there were some discrepancies between the Secretary of State and the legal counsel, Oregon's legal counsel. And we ended up, a couple of us got disqualified based on some districting changes. But I did have some conversations with David Brock Smith during that time period, and just kind of decided that I might go ahead and take the opportunity to run against him again. I like I say, I had a couple conversations. I didn't really trust that he was completely honest with me. And, I just thought that it might be something I would do in the future. As far as when I originally got into politics, it was back in like 2016. I became politically active. Me and a couple cutting buddies that worked on fires together during the Stouts Creek fire, we decided to start a group to push back against what they were doing to the Umpqua National Forest. We're older guys, and a number of us have been working on fires since the 80s. And we watched the whole fire suppression thing go from actually putting fires out when the loggers were actually working directly with the Forest Service to sitting and watching fires burn in the early 2000s. And then finally the whole program, like when they brought in the national teams and stuff, that when fires got so big, they would bring in national teams to take over the fires. And once it went to that, and the real industrial fire thing got started, really got rolling good in the 2000s, it became a whole different program. And we started actually, for a while, we watched the forest burn and set up on ridges on our cats, getting paid good money and not doing much. And we went from that to actually just laying out large blocks of land and creating fuel breaks on the road systems around those areas, some of them as big as 40,000 acres, and actually lighting them. So, we got to a point where a number of us got to a point where we were so discouraged and so disgusted with the fact that we were destroying a forest that we live beside and love up here in Tiller. I live in Tiller with my wife. And we got to a point where we decided to push back, and we started a activist group for forest management called Responsible Forest Initiatives. And that's kind of where I got my beginning in politics. It was a grassroots effort. We went out and got petitions, as your previous guest did. And what we really wanted to do was create a system of fuel breaks along the roads throughout the Umpqua National Forest. And then along those road systems that we had fuel breaks, we wanted to do thinning units, which is the right thing to do. It was an obvious common sense approach when we were losing as much forest as we were, much of it old growth. Also, we're losing a huge amount of old growth, which was what the whole object of the Northwest Forest Plan was to save old growth forests. So it's all absurd, and we got tired of it. And so I got involved in politics. And at the same time, I started writing editorials to support our group efforts. We had a lot of meetings with district rangers, with Alice Carlton, who at the time was and still is the forest supervisor, and also with Pena, James Pena's people, who was regional. So we did a lot of work, did a big petition for the fuel breaks, and just really did a grassroots effort for a long time. And I kind of got into politics. I also got involved in a river designation that the State Parks and Recreation, my wife and I live right on the South Umpqua River. And so that was also a bit of a grassroots efforts that actually got the designation shut down, at least temporarily. So that's how I got into politics. So I also became I watched Steve Bannon quite a bit. My wife and I really love the War Room.
Me too. I'm a big Steve Bannon fan. Yes.
And Dan Schultz, of course, on Bannon in 2020 was really promoting precinct strategy. I don't know if your listeners are familiar. If they're not, they should check it out, because basically it's that a group of us who are America First need to come into the Republican Party at a precinct level, become PCPs, precinct committee persons, and actually bring the America First movement into the party. So
Right.
I actually worked with other people during that time period, and we became board members. And I am a first delegate for the Douglas County GOP, and that's kind of my stepping stone that led me to getting involved in this race.
Let me ask you, there's a lot of people out there who are the established Republicans who are in local chapters of the Republican Party all the way up to the state and national party, who have accused anyone who has come in under that banner, America First, as wanting to change the party itself, the name of the party, to America First Political Party, and create your own political party. Was that part of the goal at any point in time?
No, it was never the goal of precinct strategy. It's never been a goal of mine or any of the people that we were working with. Our goal, the Republican Party, is designed to be a grassroots party. So that's why we have precinct committee persons. And we, according to the party definition, are the highest level of the party on the county level. So we are the ones that are actually, just as America itself, the party was designed after this country. We are the ones that are actually to be in control of the party, to the extent that our leaders represent our will as PCPs. It works its way up through the ORP and on to the national level, the RNC. So we didn't want to change the name of the party. We simply wanted to have the party reflect the base of the Republican Party, which at this point is, my guess is about 80% America First, Donald Trump supporting patriots.
And yeah, and I would agree with you completely. The grassroots is what drives this party. It's the backbone of this party. The problem is we need more America First, more grassroots people involved, because what you have is a lot of the political establishment, and it almost doesn't seem, and I want to hear your opinion on this, does it seem like the grassroots is having an effect, or are we getting a huge pushback from the party establishment in the Republican Party?
Well, it's a very interesting phenomena that's happening right now in the Republican Party. It's actually what you're seeing on a national level, you're seeing on a state level, and you're seeing on a county level. So the thing is pretty much the same everywhere. The establishment is certainly the group of the party that has been in power. That's why they're the establishment. They are the people that have the access to the most money, the big donors and stuff like that. Ronna McDaniel is establishment. And you have a division in the party. The grassroots is trying to take over the party, just as I said, with precinct strategy. This is a strategy. We want the upper echelons of the party to reflect the will of the grassroots. And we are America First. The grassroots, the base of the party, is primarily America First policies. Now, I can tell you this, when a guy like Donald Trump is ahead as far as he is in the polling right now, you see people who are not true America First grassroots people, like the ones that came in through precinct strategy. You see them all suddenly loving Donald Trump and claiming to be America First, but really, have these people been talking about Donald Trump and the America First movement? Have they been talking about MAGA? No, they only start talking about being behind Donald Trump when Trump's this far ahead. They did the same thing in 2016. As soon as he won, all of a sudden you realize that a whole bunch of the Republicans that were in the top echelons of the party really didn't like Donald Trump very much at all, because Donald Trump and the America First movement is a populist movement, just like what you're seeing in Argentina, the kind of stuff you're seeing in Germany right now. The people are pushing back against the government of the elite.
Yeah, and I think that's happening, like you said, in our party as well. And I think Donald Trump is leading that charge. 58% of the people here in Coos County voted for him. Before I go any further, I had a comment from Dave. He's saying that he can't hear you. We can't hear you, Rob. Unmute. Well, I'm unmute. So, Dave, let me know if you can hear me, because I know my guest can hear me because he's responding to me. So I'm not sure what's going on, but let me know, because I'd like to fix any technical problems that are going on out there. So, Dave, if you're listening, if you can't hear me, I guess you can't hear me. But if you can, let me know, because I'd appreciate it. One of the things you were talking about is these fire breaks. And they're hugely important. A lot of people don't realize if you don't have these fire breaks, the forest is going to burn, which, like you said, it seems to be intentional by our federal bureaucracy and our state bureaucracies that are supposed to manage the forest. And one of the biggest tracts of forest right now is a state-owned forest, the Elliott Forest, which used to be a forest that was supposed to produce money from the timber that they harvested, and that money was going to go to the Common School Fund. And now that's not happening, and it's supposed to be a research forest, which really that is not happening either, because the OSU has pulled out of that deal. And that deal was, oops, I just lost my guest. I hate when that happens. You know, it's kind of like when you go to the store with your kid and you all of a sudden you lose your kid. Well, hopefully we can get him back on here. But anyone who doesn't know, David Brock Smith was the one who actually introduced and sponsored the bill for the Elliott Forest, turning it from a productive forest into a research forest, where it was supposed to be managed, but of course they're not managing it. And now it's under the control of the Democrats. The Democrats, such as the governor, Tobias Reed, who I believe is the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, and of course our very own Melissa Cribbins. She sits on that board, and we have basically turned over a forest that is on Republican land. It's in mostly Republican majority out here in Douglas and Coos County, where this Elliott Forest resides. And unfortunately, they're just stopped managing it, and OSU has pulled out of it. And they have decided that because of many different reasons, that they don't want to be involved with it. Part of it is because the Indian tribes are not allowed to be involved as much as they wanted them to be involved. Part of it is because of the Habitat Conservation Plan. That's not going on now. So there's a lot of things that are happening that really has destroyed the ability of citizens who used to work on the Elliott Forest. And I forget, like, it was over 400 jobs. It was something like 400 jobs that was produced by having a running forest off the Elliott. And of course, you know, government comes in, government screws it up. At this point, if the government can't do it, if they can't do their job, I don't know. Maybe we need to sell the Elliott Forest. I know a lot of people right now are screaming, no, we can't have it. That's a beautiful place. But eventually, if the environmentalists get their way, they're going to kick all people off of the land. They're not going to allow you to do any hunting, any fishing, even any hiking. I mean, there's a lot of times that when the environmentalists get in charge of these bureaucracies, and they're definitely in charge of the state government bureaucracies, they're definitely in charge of the federal government bureaucracies. Once they move in, that's the first thing they do. They want to take it back to a point of rewilding, where they remove all remnants of man, and it gets a little depressing. I haven't seen my guest come on yet. Sometimes it happens. Maybe there was something wrong with his connection. He does live out there in the middle of nowhere, which is a good thing. Because we have too many of our representatives who live in the city. They're city dwellers, and nothing wrong with city dwellers, except that many of them forget where their food comes from. They forget what it's like to live on a farm or a ranch, or to work with your hands. There are people, and I'm part of that. I live in the city, and Hey, I got an incoming call from Todd Vaughn. Let's see if I can get him on here. Todd, what are you doing?
Well, you don't know what happened. We just lost the connection. Back to the link and see if it's like we lost the internet for a second. Huh?
Well, I got you on the speakerphone. Maybe we can do this over the speaker while your wife tries to connect on the internet. All she has to do is click that link again.
Okay, we're coming in right now.
All right.
Hold on.
All right.
We couldn't. We put the link in. It actually was not working. She said, "Okay, here we go. Enter studio." By golly.
Hey, there you are.
All right, that's technology. That's my luck with this. I'm telling you.
Hey, that was actually pretty
Sorry
cool.
about that, guys.
Hey, that's the thing about live radio or a live podcast. When I was on the radio, that would happen to us all the time. I would get some really high-profile guest who would be on the show, and right in the middle of it, it would clip off. I mean, technology is a wonderful thing. I had Dallas Hurd. We were just talking about Dallas Hurd, who was the former senator in the district you're running for. And one time he came on the show and he told this great tale of the intrigues that were going on in the state hierarchy of the Republican Party. And after the interview, I looked at my producer and he had a look on his face and he goes, "Rob, I hate to tell you, but we missed the first 20 minutes of that interview." And it was like, damn you! Damn it, Kirk! And it wasn't his fault. It was just the fact that KWRO and Bicoastal Media, they just had a very antiquated system. It's pretty sad, and in many respects, we're actually better off on the podcast because I've had a lot better luck on here. And as you can see, without a producer, I can actually even still get people on the air and back to performing. So, Todd, I was asking about the Elliott Forest. And I don't know if you heard the question, but would you answer that?
I did not hear the question, but I will tell you what I think about the Elliott Forest and what's happened. From what I gather, a recent decision, I think it's 2022, was that we are going to have a one-time payout to the Common School Fund, and I believe I heard it was 200 million. It might have been 300.
Yeah,
but either way,
million, I think it was.
There you go. Either way, after that payout, the Elliott Forest will be permanently severed from the Common School Fund. Now, that forest was actually put into trust for the very reason of providing a legacy for Oregon schools that was, never ending. If you timber manage a forest properly, especially a forest of that size and value, its original value was actually, I believe, $2 billion. And if you timber manage a forest, and you can do so much, I'm a timber cutter, and you can thin forests and you can manage forests in so many different ways. What we do, if we have the right prescriptions, we groom forests for long-term forest health and habitat. I mean, we could take a forest of that size and extract, $30 million worth of timber from it a year. I'm not sure exactly what it is with that forest. Forever. I mean, literally forever.
Forever.
And and we just lost all of that out of our common school funds with one stroke of the pen. And I do believe that David Brock Smith was a major part of the negotiations behind that piece of legislation. I'm really discouraged to see that.
He was the main sponsor of the bill, and he always has a good excuse for why he does that. He's always trying to compromise with the Democrats, and then he comes out and he'll brag a lot of times about how many bills that he got through the legislature, when in fact the reason he got so many bills through the legislature is that those bills were written to appease the Democrats, and because he compromised with the Democrats, and when I say compromised away our rights, he was able to pass bills himself. And so would you, if you had the decision of working with the Democrats and being able to compromise on these bills, do you think it's worth it? Do you think you're going to get anything out of compromising with Democrats in Salem?
No. The people that didn't compromise in the Senate are the people that walked out, and there's a reason why they did. A number of those people I have so much respect for. They were our really great legislators. And those people that walked out for a reason. That was not a flippant decision. They knew what was at risk, and they realized that the avalanche of leftist the legislation that they were looking at in that session, this last full session, was so egregious that walking out was the only thing they could do. They did not negotiate. They knew better. They've seen what has happened before, including to guys like Brock Smith and the Republicans that do negotiate. And we always take it in the shorts every single time. And Oregon is moved just a little farther to the left every time this happens. No, I wouldn't negotiate. What I would do is vote no on all of the bills that are not, truly advantageous to my constituents here in Curry, Coos, and Douglas County. And the rest of the stuff, the best thing I think we can do is stand up on the floor of the Senate and vehemently object to the type of stuff that we're looking at every time when we have a session of the Senate here in Oregon.
Let me ask you this. Let me paraphrase or give a background to it. David Brock Smith did not walk out. He was not one of the senators who walked out, and that's why he's able to run. And in fact, he lied about that to the county chairs, Rod Schilling, and to the former county chair in Curry County, and told them that he did walk out and that he was part of the lawsuit with the other senators. And I had to explain this to the Curry County chair, who didn't know this, and she told me that David told her that he did actually walk out when he didn't, and that he was part of that lawsuit when he wasn't. He literally lied so that they would spread that information. Now, if you had the chance and you were facing the destruction of your own political career, would you have walked out with those senators, and would you walk out in the future if it's necessary?
Absolutely. And I would have stayed walked out with them all the way through it. I talked to David Brock Smith when he came back from that session. He called me. We had about an hour-long conversation. I mean, I've had a couple long conversations with this guy. And, like I say, my impression, I've worked with a lot of men in my life. My impression is that David is not a very honest man. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. I just do not trust his answers. He'll talk for 10 minutes and he gets done and you don't even know what he said. But I hit him up about that. And I said, David, why didn't you guys walk out and stay walked out? And he said, basically, the media would have tore them up. And I said, if you think the media is going to be the friend of the Republican Party, you're not very smart, buddy. I mean, this is Oregon. So I know I would be happy to walk out, come home here to Tiller, even if it costs me what is really just the beginning of what I do not consider to be a political career. That's not what I'm after as a career in politics. Like I said, I've worked in the woods. I'm a logger. I'm a cutter. I love what I do. I love the friends I work with. I am here because I think we're in serious trouble in this country, and I'm just trying to help. That's the reason I'm running.
Now, I've only known you a short while, and I've actually helped out on your campaign. I've only known you maybe a month here. And to be quite honest with you, I've grown fond of you. I really like the way you are conducting yourself in your campaign. I think you've been very level-headed, and I think you've been even-handed. And those things that you've just said about David Brock Smith, did you get those feelings before you met me, or was this something that you developed because of my animosity towards the senator?
Oh, not at all. I'm telling you, I had a very long conversation with David between the Coquille appointment process. We all met in Coquille. We spoke. We each had 3 minutes. We answered questions. And, you know, I didn't know him at all then, had never met him before that day. Afterwards, because David was worried about this, like I say, there were some discrepancies on the districting, and he was worried that I might drop out of even though I'd been elected, to come back to Douglas County and speak before the commissioners and be one of the candidates still. He was worried that I was going to drop out because it just went back and forth. We were eligible. We weren't eligible. It was just it was crazy. Anybody that knows the history would go, wow, that is just unreal. But anyways,
Right.
I had a long conversation with David when he was headed back to Salem as a representative, in between the two meetings, in between the Coquille meeting and the ones that was going to be in front of the commissioners, where they would actually choose who they were going to appoint. And in that conversation, I asked David a number of questions, and I told him basically that we already knew, like I said, I am a delegate in the Douglas County Republican Party. We already knew that he was on the conveyor belt for this position. There is a conveyor belt. And when somebody resigns, or for whatever reason, they can no longer hold a seat, then the appointment process starts. And because we're kind of in the inside of the Republican Party here, we knew that Court Boyce was going to take David's position, that David was going to go to the Senate to replace Dallas Hurd. This was fairly common knowledge amongst those who have their ears to the tracks. And I talked to David about that, and he acted like, no, none of that's even, he doesn't even know. He didn't even know what I was talking about. But all of us knew what was going on. He was a shoe-in, and so was Court Boyce. And and I asked him a number of other questions, and he just was not honest with me. I mean, like I say, I've worked with thousands of men in my life on different crews, and I can tell when somebody's not being honest with me. And I just do not like these politicians, especially career politicians that have been doing it for years and intend to do it probably for the rest of their life. I do not like people lying to me. And so at that point in time, I began to form a rather negative opinion about David. It wasn't because of anything other than just the conversation we had. And then I had the other long conversation with him after the session, after he went up to the Senate. And again, just a lack of honesty. And I just, that kind of stuff makes me go, look, this is not the kind of guy I want representing me or my friends in Douglas County.
So I take it then, if you would have been the senator back in 2021 when the Republicans were facing the question on whether to put tampons in the boys' bathroom, you would definitely have voted no on that, correct?
Yes, I am a conservative. I mean, I am a true conservative. In fact, in this campaign, I am promising people to carry an 85 plus CPAC rating, and I will do it. I'm not going to make a promise to you guys and fail. I actually would love to promise for a 90% rating or 90 plus rating, CPAC rating, but I don't want to in any way. Like, what if I got an 89? Everybody be like, yeah, he lied to us, and I won't do that. By the way, I want to say that Virgil Osborne is carrying a 100 on his term as a representative right now. I think it's wonderful. He just got his new CPAC rating. Christine Goodwin has been carrying like a 92. I am not in any way opposed to the people that we have elected in this area for any other reason other than they are not voting conservative. And then I believe that they are writing poor legislation, passing poor legislation, as reflected in the CPAC rating. We have some great people, and Virgil, as long as he keeps voting conservative, and Christine, they have my full support. That is what I intend to do myself.
And I've never met Virgil Osborne, and I'm not anywhere near his district, but I have been at odds with him over recent issues concerning David Brock Smith. But I'll tell you right now, the man does have a great voting record. The man has a really good voting record, and I check on that. I work with Oregon Citizens Lobby, and one of the things we do is we review the bills, and so I know who's voting on what. So when the senators and the state reps come to me and lie to me about it, I'm the first one to call them out. which kind of gets me to my next issue I want to ask you about. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management wants to put a huge array of windmills 13 miles off the coast of Coos Bay and Brookings, and some of us are a little opposed to it. What are your thoughts on windmills?
Well, all we have to do is look at what's happened on the East Coast. I believe a contractor that actually had a contract to set up an array on more of the southern area of the East Coast. I'm not sure what state it was off. Actually just backed out of that because these projects are really not working out. I mean, they're not efficient.
Yeah.
They're not effective. They're environmentally dangerous. And I want to say, although I'm a logger and a timber cutter, I consider myself to be an environmentalist, a true environmentalist. Okay. So these projects are very environmentally damaging in all ways, from the materials that we're producing, the actual blades on the windmills, and these carbon composites and stuff. And the leakage of oil that is almost inevitable. The longevity is very short. The seawater eats up a lot of the components. There's really nothing good in my mind about wind energy, especially if it is floating wind energy in the ocean. I think it's a terrible project. I think it's driven by billions of dollars. I know it is. This was a big deal when Biden first got in. This is when this started, and Biden wanted to shift everything over to green energy. And Coos Bay was a perfect, I would say, victim for the huge amount of money that Biden and the Biden administration was willing to throw at these projects. And Oregon, of course, was a perfect victim because we're so progressive and we already have laws in place that push for these renewable energy projects, which this was one that was going to fulfill some of those requirements. But as far as what it does to the community, the fishing community, and to Coos Bay as just a wonderful place to actually bring billions of dollars into that area and begin to change the infrastructure of everything over a project that, as David Brock Smith himself said, has been brought down to, I forget what he said, I think it's 1/15 of the original size of the project, based on currents and wind that make it not impossible, but less desirable to use the whole area that was originally designed for the project. So the project has shrunk down a lot, and yet the money, is going to keep flowing. So I actually am very concerned that this project is being done in combination with China and the relationship that the Biden administration and perhaps our own politics here in Oregon has with China. So David Brock Smith says there's no connection to China. China stands nothing to gain. I disagree. I think there's some things that China stands a great opportunity to gain. If you look at what China's doing on the Belts and Roads initiatives that they're doing around the world, China is very interested in developing deep water ports all over the world. They're willing to invest great amounts of money for it. And I think what's happening is they're actually doing that. That's what they're doing in Coos Bay, except we are paying for it. Why do they want these deep water ports?
Yeah.
Why do they want these deep water ports all over the world? Well, obviously they have their cargo ships. They're huge. And we're going to see those. But I think also China is intending someday to transport troops into this very country. I am watching what's going on the southern border. I just listened to a Tucker Carlson interview with a guy that was a great interview if you guys get a chance to watch.
Brett Weinstein.
Yep.
Brett Weinstein. And we are being invaded right now by China through the southern border. And I truly believe that they are setting us up for a bigger invasion into our country. It may be in 5 years. China's a very patient country. They've been working on taking us down. They've declared us as an enemy that they intend to destroy, and they've been working on this for a long time. I think that Coos Bay and the development of that port is directly related to future ambitions of China to actually potentially invade this country.
I definitely think the windmills, you can prove that they are going to be made in China. That's where the big windmills are made, and they will have to bring them over on ship, and they will probably have to assemble them some big area offshore or onshore to take them offshore where these the base is for these windmills. I think that's absolutely excuse me, provable. My question, though, getting back to legislation, David Brock Smith claims that he passed HB 3375, the windmill bill, to stall this process. And I'm one of those who has read the bill. I don't know if you've read the bill or not, but I don't believe it stalls the process. And oh, good. So would you have passed that bill, and would you have supported it and voted for it?
No way. The whole wind energy thing is part of a huge lie. We need to be producing energy with coal. We need to be producing energy with natural gas. We've got clean energy. We can convert coal into a form that burns so clean that why would we not want to use it? Why would we pollute our ocean off of Coos Bay? Why would we have all those underwater transmission lines clambering up that bay and everything that's going to be incurred by this project when we can produce energy for probably, I don't know, maybe 1/15 or maybe 1/20 of the cost if we just do it through clean fossil fuels? And we've got the technology. This is a hoax. And you got to remember, there's a very good chance Donald Trump is going to get elected this year. You know, we're all praying for it, I know. And if he does, it's going to change a whole lot of things about how we produce energy once again in this country. It's going to be drill, baby, drill, and we're going to have access to fossil fuels again, even here in Oregon. So I think it's just a loser. I know the people of Coos Bay don't want it. I would absolutely stand beside them and fight as hard as I could fight. And David Brock Smith, I saw the clip that you had. I don't know where you got it. It's a video clip of David talking to Tina Kotek.
Let me explain that. Let me explain that video real quick before you continue your answer, because I want to hear your answer. But that video clip came from the legislature. They film all the work sessions, and I've got the work session where David Brock Smith was bragging about bringing in all the Biden money for the windmill project. He says it was going to do great for our ports, and they'll be able to use the energy created by the windmills to fuel the hydrogen hub that they are putting up in Portland. And so that video you saw was his testimony for the bill that he sponsored on the floor of the legislature when Tina Kotek was the majority leader right before she was governor. And she voted for it. All the Democrats voted for it. So did all the Republicans. And all the Democrats who sponsored the bill or co-sponsored with David Brock Smith support the windmill project. The only people who voted against it were the 8 senators who walked out in the last session. The most conservative people that we had in our legislature. And I want you to continue from, you saw that video clip.
Yes. And, you know, Brock Smith was basically, I would say, kind of gushing his pride at having been involved in this project and pushing it forward. And then he comes back and says, no, really what I did for the stakeholders, the local communities, what I really did for them was I gave them an opportunity to have 2 more community sessions where people could get together and oppose this thing. And it's just a ridiculous, it's a ridiculous answer to the truth that we all saw. It's obviously, you guys, this is a multi-billion-dollar project. The reason why a lot of the Republicans voted yes to move this project ahead along with David Brock Smith is because this is a huge money project. The reason that the people voted no is because they realized that the type of things that I'm talking about was behind this project. This project is not good for Oregon. It's not good for America. It definitely has a Chinese influence. We don't know how deep it goes, but one thing we know, and that's for the Biden administration to print a bunch of our money and send out to support a project like that and cause inflation to ripple throughout our economy. This is what we've got going with this new green energy deal. These kind of projects, we're paying for it. U.S. taxpayers are paying for it. These projects are terrible projects that shouldn't even be considered with the fact that we have so much natural gas, coal, and fossil fuels available until we make a good transition to more of this type of energy, both solar and wind. There's a transition that we can make. I'm not saying we shouldn't use these kind of renewable energies. This project is a crappy project, and the people that walked out knew it, and the people that supported it knew it too. It's all about the billions, the Benjamins, as they say. It's all about the Benjamins.
Right. Yep. And, we went to the Habitat Conservation Plan, me and Diane Rich, and we were standing in the parking lot when Court Boyce pulled up, and he got out of his car, and the first thing Diane asked him was, have you heard about this windmill project? He got this big smile on his face. He said, yes, isn't that great? We're going to bring all this money into our ports. It's going to be wonderful. And of course, me and Diane, we were looking at him like, are you kidding me? And this is the type of thing. Now he's saying he's against it. And it took, he would never say he was against it when he was on my radio show. And we had asked him 3 times before he even said that he can't answer the question. He had studied it for 4 years, but yet he couldn't answer the question. And I don't know. I could look at this issue for 10 minutes and come to a conclusion. It's so bad. It's pretty sad how some people are willing to sell out for our own money because the federal government is bribing us with our own money. Would you accept a lot of these projects and programs if the federal government is going to subsidize them at a heavy rate?
No, it's like this. The Oregon China Council, Brock Smith has been a member of it. So has Tim Freeman and some of our other commissioners and representatives in the area. I asked David Brock Smith if he was a member of it or how many members of the Oregon China Council we had representing us in this area of Oregon. He would never give me a clear answer. I asked him twice. He would never give me a clear answer. He gave me 10-minute word salad answers, but never a clear answer as to his connection to the Oregon China Council. Well, the Oregon China Council does do some good things. I mean, we've got $8 billion worth of trade with China that benefits our beef industry and our other agricultural industries. Everybody knows this. But the fact is, the way I think of it is like this. China is not our friend. They have had a policy of unrestricted warfare for many, many years, actually like 3 decades. This policy of unrestricted warfare has one intention, and that is destroying Western culture as we know it in America, okay? So much of what we're seeing is coming through China's policy. The Oregon China Council is not what it appears to be, but we have people that support Brock Smith, like the Cattlemen's Association and whatnot, because he helps as a mediator between them and China. But the thing is, there's so much more involved in what that organization does in regard to how it affects our culture and stuff. And the tampons in the boys' bathrooms may be part of that. This is all part of a Marxist agenda that I think a lot of us are beginning to understand. People are beginning to figure this out, and China is the driver of it. Now, we know China's the one driving the fentanyl coming across our border. Now, here's my question for you guys out there listening. If you were living in a city and there were a bunch of drug dealers selling fentanyl to the kids and they were dying left and right, which, by the way, is exactly what's happening, okay? And you were a car salesman, a Mercedes-Benz salesman. You sold like high-dollar cars, and a bunch of cartel members came in. Shut her up, honey. A bunch of cartel members came in and they said, we want to buy a whole fleet of Mercedes-Benz from you. And you know that those people were selling drugs to the kids. Would you just say, well, look, if I don't sell them, to these guys. Somebody else is gonna. Why shouldn't I make the money? Why should I say, when you have an enemy that is threatening the very culture, the very fabric of your society that has taken over most of our institutions, when you have an enemy like that, do you do business with them? Do you sell them what they want to buy? I say no. And I think the people that work with organizations like the Oregon China Council that are actually supporting David Brock Smith right now, a lot of them, it's because they're selling their product to China. They're making good money off of it. But listen to me, China is our enemy. And these people are actually putting aside the well-being of America in order to profit for themselves. I think it's very disgusting. I think people need to start looking at the big picture and realize it's not all about your bank account. The Patriots have got to stand the line with China or we're going to lose this country.
And here's where I would agree to you to the point where I disagree. If someone wants to do business with China, I'm not going to stand in their way. And that's, I figure that's where you're at as well. But if we are out there encouraging this through things like the Southwest Oregon China Council, the Oregon China Council, where we have state representatives who are traveling to China where they can get bribed or worse yet, blackmailed. And that right there is a huge problem for me. Why do we need state legislators? Why do we need them even traveling out of Oregon? Isn't their job to take care of Oregon? Let the federal legislatures or the president deal with that. Why do we even have state legislators doing that? Do you think that's an appropriate role for them?
No, this is the same thing's happening all over the country in different spots. There is a U.S. China Heartland Association that is the same type of thing as the Oregon China Council. Okay, happening. These people, China is buying up our farmland. I know a lot of you guys know this. There's more happening. They're infiltrating our colleges. They're spreading Marxism, and they're doing it through our elected officials. And I totally agree with what you just said. I have no problem with the Cattlemen's Association sending an agent to China and doing a deal to sell China beef. I have no problem with that at all. But we do not need our elected officials as a mediator between our corporations in America and the Chinese Communist Party, because what the Chinese Communist Party is so good at doing is using our elected officials to actually promote their agenda. And they're doing it on a number of fronts. It's not just about doing business with us. They're doing it in a very manipulative way through our schools, a lot of this transgender stuff. If you really look at what's happening, Marxism is being driven into this country like a freaking nail by China.
And that's what they did under the reign of Mao Zedong. Mao. I'm sorry, was it Mao?
Yes, exactly.
It was Mao. And so that's why when you look at pictures of the 50s of the Chinese people, you can hardly tell the difference between the men and the women because they were all put in the same uniform. They were all made to be the same. Why? Because family doesn't matter, government matters. Religion doesn't matter, government matters. Culture doesn't matter, government matters. Government is now your God, and you will worship that God with your very life. You will sacrifice your life to government, which is now taken the place of God, family, culture, and all those things I just spoke of. And that's why they're doing that here. They're trying to create it where everyone is going to be exactly the same. It's all part of equity, and that's what the driving force behind this push. And people don't see it because they don't realize, they think it's more about empowering themselves. The gay folk, who I have no problem with gay people, but they think they're empowering themselves by forcing their agenda on everyone else. The trans agenda, it's the same thing. The woke agenda, all of those things are just agendas that are being placed on people to separate them from all the things that we value in life. And when you talk
Exactly.
about the Marxist revolution, yeah, that's so you agree with all that.
Oh yeah, it's an intentional destruction of the Western culture. This thing's happening on a global level. It's the UN is driving it. So is the World Economic Forum, the WEFs. You know, I don't. So is all of the global organizations are driving it. China is the model that they want to institute, and in order to institute a model like what China is, the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, to institute a model like that, you have to destroy an economy of a country like the United States. We're the leading competitor of this ideology, and our ideology is Western civilization. So we are a Western culture that believes in the traditional family unit. We are Judeo-Christian by definition. We are part of the Enlightenment that came out of Europe. All of these things are who we are as America, and what we're seeing from China and from all of these global organizations is an assault on our traditions. And they've been doing it for a long time. We're way behind the curve. And one of the reasons why I'm running to be a senator is because people need to know this. We need to get up to speed. We are late in this game. And it's time for people to stand up on the Senate floor and talk about what's actually happening, and what our Oregon state government is doing is directly in line with this destruction of our own culture.
And so you would never be a member of the Oregon China Council, right?
No way. None. No. I think we need to actually pass a law. You want to pass some laws? Let's pass a law that no senator or representative of the House can be in any way connected to the Oregon China Council or anything else that has to do with China that might involve undue influence, like you say, from either bribes or honeypotting or blackmail. The Chinese are experts at this stuff. And if you need to look for some examples, you don't need to look very far.
In fact, there was a report out.
Is David Brock Smith compromised? I do not know. What I do know is one of his main donors has direct connections to China. He's an investor, and he has direct connections to China. And I find that to be something worth vetting and considering. So when we began to vet David for this primary, a lot of the Republicans in Douglas County threw a fit that we were even vetting him. What is the matter with our party when we are not even willing to look into our own candidates that we're promoting and find out, is there something going on there that's nefarious? Because China, they are experts at this stuff. They've been doing it for years. And I think we should closely vet all of our candidates and look for connections to China.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to touch on this since you hit the subject a little bit. David Brock Smith's number one contributor, I won't mention his name here. He is also registered as a Democrat in San Francisco, an active voter in San Francisco. He's also a registered active voter in Curry County. And allegedly, and I have to say allegedly because, I don't want to face any lawsuits, but allegedly he voted in the presidential primary in California in 2020, and he voted in the presidential primary here in Curry County in May of 2020. And I'm one of those who, if I'm receiving money, and we're talking the top contributor, over $150,000 since 2016. I don't know how much he gave to David before 2016, but since then it's been $150,000. And this gentleman obviously is probably expecting something. I've heard he's still active in the Democrat Party in San Francisco. And I would ask you, would you take money from a billionaire who made a lot of that money in China, who's committing allegedly voter fraud? Would you take money from someone like that?
Of course not. Of course not. I don't care how much money you got, Rob. It doesn't matter how much money you've got. This country is worth saving at the expense of the riches you could gather for yourself. And people better start looking at it like that. We are in trouble right now. We're in trouble. And people better put aside their personal ambitions and start actually becoming patriots. That's what the America First movement is.
And so we've got a lot of domestic issues. And one that's working its way around right now is I on the first hour of the show, I had a lady by the name of Donna Kreitzberg on the show talking about school choice and having the money follow the children, and parents being able to, on the second measure that she has going around, allowing parents to decide what school districts they will be allowed to attend. Where are you on school choice?
Oh man, it's been a long time coming, guys. This was the solution. This has been the solution all along. You create competition. You give the parents the choice as to what type of education they want their children to have. You take the power out of the state's hands and put it back in the parents' hands as far as the type of education that the kids are getting. I am a school board member, a district member for a charter school on their board. The charter. I'm not on the charter board. I'm on the district board, and I think charter school. We have an excellent charter school in Days Creek, Oregon, where I serve on the board. And we are not having the same issues whatsoever as the regular public schools are having. We are a public school. We're in the public school system, but as a charter board school. And I think if you're going to if you're going to keep your kids in public schools and you have an opportunity to put them in a charter school, do it. You'll notice that right now there's a big scrap happening in Oregon about not forming any more charter schools. And the teachers' unions are behind that. Just like the teachers' unions will be behind trying to nix the school choice program that Donna's working on. It's great. I watched the interview. It was a great interview. I love the concept. I'm familiar with it. And of course I will support school choice. I think it's necessary.
I completely agree with you as well. I think it's something that is absolutely necessary. I think that we have completely demoralized many generations of schoolgoers, people who've attended school, who felt left behind, who felt ignored, who didn't receive the adequate education that we owe them. These are kids that we owe them the best education that they can get. We owe them that. I mean, my child, I used to do supplemental education. When he'd come home from school, would have many different things that I would want to teach him because they weren't teaching him in school. And I feel so sorry for so many kids who didn't graduate, or they graduated. There's a young man here. I see he still lives with his mother. He's 25 years old. He can't read. He can't hardly even sign his own signature. And that was another thing, Todd. I've been out collecting petitions for a long time. In the last couple of years, I don't know how many times, and it's usually young men who'll come up and ask me about the petition, and I'd explain it to him, and I say, well, would you want to sign it? And the young man will say, well, I'd love to sign it, but I don't know how to write my signature. These are guys who graduated school. These are guys who are in their mid and late teens, and they don't even know how to sign their signature. And as a legislator, if you win, you're really going to be fighting an uphill battle because the Democrats are the majority. And anything that you put forward as far as education and school choice is going to be demonized by those Democrats and the leftists because the unions hold control over those people. Other than this measure, which I think, you probably support, what could you do to help get this on the ballot? What can you do to help get people to know more about it?
Well, I'm looking forward to speaking on the Senate floor whenever I get a chance. I think that what I've become, I'm an editorialist. My activism has been my voice. And I will stand up on the floor. Like I say, I've written a lot of editorials. If you guys want to really know me politically, go to the News Review here in Roseburg or to the Beacon and read my stuff. I've been writing since 2016 when we formed REFI, Responsible Forest Initiatives. And that's what I really consider myself as, a voice for the people. So when I go to Salem, I can vote no, and I will vote no on probably 90% of what comes in front of me. That's probably the way Virgil and Christine developed such a good CPAC rating, by voting no. That's how you do it. So the other thing I can do is I can go on the floor and I can speak, and I will commit to my constituents. You send me to Salem, you're going to be hearing Todd Vaughn speaking on the floor whenever I get a chance. I think that's the most powerful thing you can do.
And I would agree with you, because there's a lot of times when there's a lot of bills that even the most conservative Republicans would vote against, that they wouldn't stand up and speak out against it. And it's kind of like when we would have a meeting at the commissioners or with the city council, and there would be a packed room opposing what the council or the commissioners are doing, yet nobody will get up and speak. And the reason I do every single time, and I know it's annoying to a lot of people, the reason I do is so that when people who are, after all this passes, if they want to look back and find out if someone actually disagreed with this garbage, that there was a person who stood up and spoke out against it, so that they know we weren't supportive of whatever the council or the commission was doing. And they've done a lot of crazy things. I mean, like the closing of the forest roads. Luckily, we had a lot of people speak out against that, but they still closed the forest roads. And so it's good to hear that you're going to be speaking as much as you can when you get a chance on the floor, because I think really, isn't that really the only thing that you can do to fight against this nonsense? Because any bill you put forward has a chance to be converted and perverted by the Democrats, because they take it to committee and they'll do a stuff and gut and stuff, and literally take out the good wording, put in bad wording, and then pass it as a bipartisan bill because they got a Republican sucker to sponsor the bill.
Yeah, we saw that. Okay, I fought fire on the Archie fire. I was on a cutting module. And I don't know whether that fire was started by transmission lines. That's what they determined. That's what the evidence said. There was some weird stuff happening that day. I'm sure a lot of you remember, as they knew the wind was coming. They knew that the east wind was coming, very low humidity, very high temperatures. And that was probably the worst and most dangerous fire that Douglas County's ever seen. I fought on like a dozen fires. I was on that one as a cutting module. But after that fire, they created legislation that was meant, when it was originally created, I believe Dallas Hurd helped work on it. The committee, I believe he was on a committee that worked on it. And they created legislation with the stated purpose of trying to make sure that the problem of transmission lines starting fires like that could be eliminated, or at least mitigated. And they were going to do that by turning lines off when they had weather conditions coming, like that day. And there was a number of things that the bill was supposed to address. Now, if you read that bill, I believe it's 765. I can't remember, but I look at these bills and there's so many different numbers, I get them mixed up. But if you look at that bill now, it is like pages and pages and pages. The first part of the bill is about what they can do with the transmission lines to try to make them safer. The rest of the bill is just an absolute assault on property ownership rights. They actually can come in, the county actually can come in, look at your property, determine whether you're adhering to the type of safe space around your house, defensible space around your house that the bill defines, and the counties will work with the state to make sure that it's adhered to. And they can actually fine you and put it on your property taxes, where you really have no recourse. And if you don't pay the fine, it's actually part of your property taxes. I mean, if you look at the rest of that bill, which became a huge behemoth bill that was just crazy, look where that bill started out and look where it ended up. And David Brock Smith signed that bill in its final form.
Right.
I mean, disgusting.
It was SB 762, and even Dennis Lithicum came out and said that the bill would literally follow through with the World Economics Forum credo of "you will own nothing and you will be happy." And David Brock Smith voted for that bill, even though the Oregon Citizens Lobby, the lobbying group that he is supposed to follow because it's a conservative group, said it was a no vote, and he voted for it. And once again, this is a man who says he's working for rural Oregon, but yet he's passing windmill bills and Elliott Forest bills and this fire prevention bill that had nothing really to do with fire prevention. And these bills are going to destroy rural Oregon, which is going to harm people like you, because you are the definition of a rural Oregonian. You live out in the middle of nowhere, and yeah. How do you feel about that?
It's really discouraging to me. I'll tell you guys, to me, property ownership rights is like a primary concern. Most of us, the most important thing that we own, I know it's true for my wife and I, is our property. And for them to put like what they tried to do to us up here, a river designation that actually takes control of our property and allows them to take it from us if we do not adhere to the laws connected to that river designation, a scenic river designation. The State Parks and Recreation Department tried to do that to us, and I helped fight it. I went up to Salem and spoke and became part of a stakeholder advisory committee. And then I came back and told all my neighbors that were being impacted by it to insist that they became part of that committee, because they only wanted a couple of us who actually owned land on the river here. They only wanted a couple of us on that committee. And then they had like 30 other stakeholders that involved all kind of stuff, whitewater, fish stuff, all people that they knew would vote yes to designate this river. It was a real piece of grassroots work that we did. And all the people, all my neighbors, when I asked them to insist that they were part of the stakeholders advisory committee, they did that, and they dropped the river designation. But these kind of designations, if you get a letter from the State Parks and Recreation Department, pay attention to it, because what they really are is just the same thing this bill that David Brock Smith signed is, and the same thing that we're seeing in the private forest accord. These bills are assaults on your private property ownership. They're talking about, you will own nothing and be happy. Well, we're well on the way with bills like these.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Right now, this is another local domestic issue, is we have, and I hate to use the word homelessness. It's not just homelessness. It's crime in the streets by people who don't have homes, but they don't want homes because they're literally feral humans. And there are many of us who are tired of watching our cities, our counties, our state go up into tent cities. I'm sick of it. I know my neighbors are sick of it. It's affecting us here in little old Bandon. I don't know how bad it is affecting you there where you live. But what would you do, and this is a twofold question, what would you do about the people who don't seem to want to live by the norms of life, who just want to live a drug-addled life on the street, and people who actually are homeless because they just can't afford to buy housing because of the expense of housing? What are some of the things you would like to see done to try to alleviate both of those problems?
Well, I'll start with your second part of your question. I think that I was a builder. I was a licensed contractor, residential contractor for a number of years. So I've built a lot of houses and barns and everything, anything you can imagine. I've built it, and I worked with the building department constantly, planning department. I've done all that stuff during that period of time, and I would say this: we need to loosen up the fees for developers who want to develop neighborhoods. We can provide a lot more low income type housing. And it doesn't have to be apartments. It doesn't have to be the kind of smart housing that they're forcing on these planning departments right now, and which is really Agenda 2030. That's where it's all coming from, guys. ICLEI. Now it's sustainable development. It's in our building codes. It's in our planning stuff. It's in the planning department of Douglas County. This stuff's everywhere. It's in almost all the cities. We can get away from that. It's going to take some courage from our planning departments, from our commissioners, and from our as far as our building codes. We can loosen up some of the things that make building housing development so expensive, and we can build housing developments of tract homes. When I was in the building industry when I was younger, we built a lot of tract homes. We can build inexpensive homes. We can build small 2-bedroom homes that sit on very small lots and give people an opportunity who don't have a lot of income to go ahead and own a home and develop some equity for themselves. We can do that. We can loosen up some of the planning department things that would allow somebody to build a small cabin on their place and rent to somebody for a low rent, or studio apartments, things like that. So we need to focus on how to provide more low-income housing. We can broaden out the urban growth boundaries for the big cities. We can give tax deductions for people who are investing in projects that are connected to helping to eliminate the homelessness through low-income housing. We can do all sorts of things through our planning departments and our building departments. We can loosen up some of the building codes that are really make building a house expensive. They don't add that much. We're Americans. We should have freedom to build a house with less of that type of green energy stuff if we choose to. These are all rights that have been taken from us. We're being forced to swallow a whole lot of green energy pills right now everywhere. It makes everything more expensive, especially providing low-income housing. So I think we should do that in all the cities. And there's a number of other things we can do too that I'm not mentioning right now. We need to look at this problem seriously and figure out how to provide low-income housing. The other thing we need to do in regard to your first part of your question, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, Rob, a lot of these people that are living in the cities on the streets, and let's face it, they're defecating on the streets, they're shooting up, it's really disgusting. It's absolutely devastating to businesses who have these people living on the streets in front of their business. These are entrepreneurs. These are the people that make our economy work. Small businesses like the guest you just had on that was I guess body and fender or mechanicking. These guys have these people living on the streets around them, crapping on the sidewalks. It's absolutely disgusting. Their customers are being impacted by it. Their businesses are being impacted by it. We have to take care of these people. These are the people that make our economy grow. So how do we do this? Well, if a person has been picked up for trespass so many times, we've got to take them off the streets. How do we take these people off the streets? Where do we put them? Do we put them in the county jailhouse? That's very expensive, and it's really not a very good solution. I think that we need to have a serious discussion about building a number of facilities throughout Oregon that we actually, once you have so many trespasses, we have people working the streets that actually are talking to the homeless, finding out which type of homeless person they are. If they're a homeless person that lost their job, lost their house, and now they're living out of their car, but they're not insane. They're not on drugs. They're actually people who are just struggling economically. We should help them to get into low-income housing. We need to figure that out. If they're a person who has serious drug problems, which many of them are, and they have serious mental illness issues, then we need to bring them into a facility that has a number of different levels of addressing their issues. There needs to be counselors. Obviously, we need to have some rehab programs. These facilities do not have to be luxurious. They do not have to be super expensive. But what they need to do is encourage the people through some help, a hand up. We need to get people unaddicted. We need to get people's teeth fixed, their health issues dealt with, and we need to move them up through whatever these facilities have in the way of dividing them into different areas of addressing different problems depending on the people. And we need to begin to allow these people, as we train them and help them as they move from one section to another and begin to become more functional, we need to allow them to actually do the cooking, to perhaps grow large gardens. We need to begin to train them in a way that they might go back out to society and become functional members of society again. This is a serious problem, but we cannot allow this thing to go the direction it has taken, which means the businesses and the communities pay all the price, and these people just sit there like a festering sore in the middle of us all, crapping on our sidewalks. It can't go on like this, because guess what, Rob? It's going to get a lot worse. We just had 10 to 15 million people come into this country, and they are overwhelming all of our systems. If we don't figure this out now, if you think what you're seeing in the cities, including Roseburg, it's happening in Roseburg, it's happening in Coos Bay, it's happening even in smaller towns. If you think that what we're seeing now is bad, you just wait about 2 or 3 years and see what you got. And when we begin to take these people, I guess you would say, into guardianship or custody and begin to work with them, that's when we can also begin to help Donald Trump to sort out the illegal aliens, the illegal immigrants. They're illegal aliens, and we need to support him in his effort to send them back to where they came from. They came in here illegally. Donald Trump says he's going to do it. He said he was going to build a wall. I believe this guy is going to have a massive deportation program. And if we start addressing the homeless issue with these type of facilities, we can help him to institute a deportation program also.
Yeah, completely. I totally think so. And we need to get back to enforcing the law. If you come here illegally, it's a crime. You need to be deported. And that would do it.
That's right.
That simple. And yeah, it's sad what's going on. I don't want to keep you here too much longer because we've talked quite a bit, and I'll have you back on again. But you're having an event here in Coos County, in Myrtle Point, at the fairgrounds, I believe it's at the Oaks Pavilion, and I've got it on screen here. It says candidate meet and greet, Oaks Pavilion Fairgrounds, Myrtle Point, Friday, February 23rd at 2024, from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And you are, it's sponsored by Multi-Use Storage, and huge sponsor. Very good. You're going to be there, and why don't you tell people what you intend to do with having this meet and greet?
Well, I would love to get to know the voters on the coast better. I live in Tiller, Oregon. I live in the far south, southeast corner of Douglas County. So I'm about as far from you folks over there on the coast as I can be. I would love to come over there and meet some of the folks in Curry and Coos County, and there will be people from Douglas County there. I will answer all your questions. Some of these questions, like what you just asked me about the homeless issue, these are tough questions. But I will tell you what is on my mind, and I will be honest with you guys. So it'll be a great opportunity for you guys to just have an open forum to ask me questions. I'll speak a little bit. I don't mind talking to people, as you can see from this interview. I enjoy sharing with people, and I think we're going to have a good time. If you're interested, you can visit my website, which is www.toddvaughn.com. Go to my website. We need donations. We're about ready to have a big sign program and put out a whole lot of signs. We definitely need help with this campaign. What you see is what you get. I will always be honest with everybody. I will not give you word salads. If you ask me a question, I will give you an honest answer. And I think we have a great opportunity to do that at this event.
Sounds like a good time. I'm definitely going to be there, and I encourage others to be there. And I think we're going to have a blast. I want to thank you for coming on. We'll get you back on again. I do like to give everyone a fair chance, and so I'll probably have Ashley Hicks, who's running in this race, and of course Paul Romero come on the show, because I think everyone should be able to see, not just the incumbent. I'm not like the establishment. I think that everyone should have a chance to be seen and heard, and that's the way I roll. I like to be as fair as possible. And so, and I will even invite Senator David Brock Smith on the show. I doubt he'll show up, but I will invite him as well, because if he wanted to come on here and have a discussion, I'd be more than happy to oblige him. And so I thank you for coming on here. And before I get you out of here, is there anything quick you'd like to say to the listeners?
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing. Rob Taylor, I love the way you roll. My wife and I really enjoy your program. It's just so authentic, and it's just Americana, man. It's grassroots politics. I love the way you roll. Thanks for having me on.
It was my pleasure, and you take care. Give your dog and your wife a big hug from me, and tell them keep up the good work.
See you guys on the campaign trail.
All right. All right. That was excellent. That was absolutely a very good interview. Those are one of the kinds of interviews I like to hear. And, this was a very positive show. I think the very first of the show, having Donna Kreitzberg on, talking about those two measures that she has circulating as petitions to change the Constitution so that your kids not only will have school choice and the money will follow the kids, but it will give you the availability to choose the district you want your kid to go to as far as charter or other public schools, because charter schools are public schools. And so I think these are great opportunities. And now you've got an opportunity to vote for someone who, well, isn't going to capitulate with his Chinese masters, who isn't going to take money from Democrats, who isn't going to vote for bills that are going to destroy rural Oregon, but actually help rural Oregon, or vote against the ones that are going to be against rural Oregon. And I'll tell you, there's good reason to worry about the leadership that we have here. David Brock Smith is not doing the things he should be doing for our rural Oregon. And, I can show you some pictures here. This is David with his Chinese master. I don't know. This guy is from the Chamber of Commerce of some city in China. And I can tell you right now, this guy right here that's to the right of David Brock Smith, that guy right there, well, actually he's to the left of David Brock Smith, but he's on the right on your screen. And he has to be a member of the Chinese Communist Party. And there David Brock Smith is with his big old smile. And I want you to notice David Brock Smith's his suit. I want you to notice the pins that are on the suit. He's got several little pins on his suit, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Then I saw another picture. Here's David Brock Smith, and if you look on the left bottom of the screen of this picture, you can see the little pin, the little pledge pin that he has there. Let's get a little bit closer. Oh yeah, you look at that right there, and you start to notice, wow, that right there is a Chinese pledge pin. That's right. It's a little Chinese pledge pin. Why the hell would David go over to China and put one of these little Chinese pledge pins on there? And we can go a little bit further. I love this meme. This was sent to me by Paul Romero. It's pretty funny. This shows David Brock Smith as that bumbling guy on Animal House, and the drill sergeant that was in ROTC, he's representing the Oregons, and I love the little expression down there. Is that a Chinese Communist Party pledge pin on your uniform? And of course there's David. Yep. A little whimper. That was his Chinese master. And that's what we're dealing with today. That's what we have today. And if you don't think there's a problem with having your senators go over to China where they can be blackmailed or bribed, and I can tell you, I personally know David, and I've heard a lot of wild stories about his personal life, and I think he's someone who might have some skeletons in his closet, and I think he might be able to be bribed. And if you don't think it's happening, you need to read this book by Trevor Loudon. Trevor Loudon is an expert on international relations, geopolitics, and it says at the top here, 15 more subversive lawmakers exposed, and these are both Republicans and Democrats, security risk senators. It's part 2, Michigan to Wisconsin, and these are federal senators. These are federal senators who have been shown to be either bought out or being bribed by China, and Trevor Loudon wrote this book on it. Part 1 is really good as well. Part 2 is even better. And I would highly recommend you read it. And after you read the security risk senators, I want you to remember good old David Brock Smith with his, his pledge pin there. Yep, there he is with his pledge pin. There he is right there with his little pledge pin. Yep, David Brock Smith, and his Chinese master, his Chinese overlord right there. Do you really want him as a senator? I know I don't. I'd much rather have Todd Vaughn at this late date. I'd be happy to have Chicken Little would be doing a better job than David Brock Smith. You could probably teach a chicken to hit the no button every time the Democrats are putting up a lousy bill. David, not so much. He's passing a lot of bills that are very destructive to rural Oregon. So I hope you guys remember that when you're placing your ballot this year, that there are people out there who they really just, they don't want to help you because, well, they're either bought off or they're being bribed or, they're just too damn stupid to figure it out. And I'll let you figure that out for David Brock Smith. I don't know what his hangup is. But we do have choices, and it's a good thing we do have choices because, if we didn't have choices, then this wouldn't be America. And that's why I hope you go to Freedom Education for Oregon. That was my first guest, Donna Kreitzberg. There's her website right there, Education Freedom for Oregon, educationfreedomfororegon.com. Get one of those petitions, go around your neighborhood and get a whole bunch of signatures. Or at least get the single sheet petition and sign it yourself and send it in. It will be a real thrill for Donna. And so I hope you guys take that into consideration. And if not, you do need to check out toddvaughns.com. He's running against David Brock Smith. He's running for Senate District 1, and I think you would appreciate someone who is, well, how shall we say it, who's a real American, not one of these phonies who's got their Chinese pledge pins on the lapels. It's pretty disgusting what's happening there. And, I've got some really special guests that are going to be coming on next week's show. I made a lot of contacts at the Western Liberty Network. And I wanted to let you know that Dennis Lithicum, he did pass out during the reception, but it was because he was dehydrated. He didn't have a heart attack or anything. And he's doing very well. I saw him the next day. And I had a really good time at the Western Liberty Network. I recommend it. Next year I'll be promoting it, and I hope you guys go. It's a wonderful place and a wonderful way to meet new people. And I'm going to get out of here. I think it's been long enough. I carried on for long enough. But until next week, carry on, Coos County. Carry on.